Hello and welcome to Season 6 of Business Mentorship, Keeping It Real. Introducing enterprise leaders who have taken the leap to business owner and celebrate their great idea in a guest blog found on shareyourstories.online. Our guest joins us from Oak Lawn, Illinois. Heather McCarthy is an author, a media specialist, a librarian, and an advocate who believes in the transformative power of literacy, technology, and community engagement. Let's find out how Heather has taken her commitment to literature and written children's books to spark imagination, resilience, and hope. It is my pleasure to welcome and introduce everyone to Heather.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You know, I'm so curious because I see the connection between obviously reading, literacy, librarian, and author. So tell us a little bit about your journey as an author.
Well, here as a media specialist at a middle school and a librarian, everything we do revolves around literature and then how we can use that literature to spark change. How after every piece of literature we read, we try and see if there's a community service or a service learning project, whether it's on a local, national, or global level, like something we can do to connect other people and make the world a better place. So my journey as an author, I was very fortunate to be a part of Women Making a Difference, an anthology of women from the Women Changing the World book series on things that I do to try and make the world a better place. And since I have my students involved in all of it, we're currently working on a picture book that is about Africa and the struggles that children have accessing quality education in some parts of Africa. So we're working on that book where all the proceeds will go to building libraries in Zimbabwe.
Oh, that's pretty cool because you know what I love? I love the connection that you have between the passion project, we'll call it, and involving the students and actually teaching them about philanthropy, right?
Yeah, and the kids are all in. So especially this project with building a library in Zimbabwe, I was fortunate to go on the Awakened Women's Tour with Dr. Tararai Trent to Zimbabwe, and she showed me all of the schools that she has sponsored. And when I brought the pictures and videos back to my kids, they're like, well, what does their library look like? And I'm like, guys, let's talk about access to clean water and food before we talk about libraries. But they jumped right in and they're like, well, let's build them a library. Let's do this. So the students are doing their part, which they're hosting a 6K walk for literacy, because 6 kilometers is the average distance that young children in Africa have to walk to get to school. So we're walking the 6K to empathize with them. And then the adults are doing our part. We're throwing a big fundraiser. And then we're also working on the picture book. So we're just putting all these little pieces together to try and show the students that they might be 12, but whether you're 12 or 112, you can be the change and make a difference in the world.
So tell me what sparked the connection to the literacy project in Africa? Like, how did you make how did you bridge that gap and meet those individuals that would give you that eye-opening experience to tell you about how life is in that country?
Well, when I went with Dr. Trent and she showed us each of the schools, we were able to sit and interact and play with the kids. There was a lot of singing and dancing, playing soccer, and the students learn in both Shona and English, and their English is really great. And
Wow.
it was a place that really just broke my heart and also filled my heart with love, to see these children that are so happy and so joyous. And they really don't have the resources that they need. They're not given basic human rights of clean water and food. And so when I shared those stories with my own students, it really resonated with them. They felt it. They felt it too, the same feelings that I felt when I was there.
So, let's talk a little bit about the author's journey because I know you've collabed on some books with some awesome people who have also shared their stories. Do you find that the opportunity to share stories with the students about life experience is another learning tool?
Oh, absolutely. Um, we see all literature as a learning tool, and it's the stories that we read and the stories that we write. And I think when the students have seen, I've had other attempts at children's books that have really flopped, and I've learned a lot through this author's experience.
Sure.
But I
Yeah.
think when the students see, like, oh, Miss McCarthy tried it. She messed up. I can give it a
Yeah.
try because it's okay if I mess up or if I fail, or if I'm sharing stories of my travels or stories of other things that I've read. The more storytelling and sharing I do, the more comfortable they are sharing their stories. And then this
Sure.
whole, the power of stories coming together. It's really beautiful when people feel comfortable in sharing their stories, kind of like a platform like this, right? Share your
Yeah.
stories
Yeah.
online, and
For
you've
sure.
brought together all these people that will share their stories and make other people comfortable in sharing their stories and
Mhm.
help each other out.
So tell me, let's talk a little bit about failure. Because you mentioned failure as a learning tool. And I think I can remember back when I was in school, and my parents were all about the grades. You had to get the grades. You couldn't come home with anything less than an A. Your contribution to education was really measured on the grades that we brought home. I don't ever think that I was taught that failure was a learning tool.
It's definitely a learning tool here in our library, and we fail all the time. But there's so much beauty that comes out of
Yeah,
failure.
for sure.
Especially we have, besides all the literature, we have a maker space, and it's a lot of STEM activities and tinkering and playing around with technology. And a lot of times our engineer work just crashes to the ground, and we're like, let's go back to the drawing board. What do we have to do? And for some students and adults, that's definitely a learning curve. Like,
Yeah.
it's easy to get frustrated, it's easy to want to quit. But if you've built that community of people around you to help you, and you have that support system to get through those failures, the success at the end is just so much better. And then you have people to celebrate it with.
I love the fact that you're teaching children that failure is a learning experience and that it's something to be shared and not something to be ashamed of because I really think that, certainly I can take my own entrepreneurial experience, and you've mentioned, you try many things, and if it doesn't work, you go back to the drawing board and you try again. So I think that the fact that you're teaching other folks, adults and children, that failure is healthy and part of life experience is really rather profound because I don't think that, there's a whole generation of people that was never exposed to that.
Yeah, I wasn't as a kid. It was
Yeah.
like you grew up to try and be a
Be
perfectionist
perfect.
and
Yeah,
just
exactly.
get it right. I definitely
Yeah.
didn't get it right. So as an
No.
adult, I'm still, you
We're
never stop
still
learning.
learning. Yeah, we're still learning, right? Now, what made you decide that you wanted to get into the profession of teaching and obviously segueing from there into becoming a librarian? What was your aha moment that made you decide that this was a path you wanted to pursue?
So I originally growing up was really into like sports and being an athlete. And so I thought something in like a physical education teacher or coaching would be, the right fit for me, helping others in athletics. But then through college, when I started working with kids in reading, and they had that aha moment where they could like read a word or like the power they felt through being able to read. I
Mhm.
was like, "Oh, I love this." Like, what a great feeling when someone else is able to learn to read. So that brought me into the world of being a language arts teacher. And in the middle school setting, as a language arts teacher, I only taught about 90 to 100 kids. And I really like this idea of giving back and community service. And I was working with such a small population. But moving into the library and the media specialist role, I now have 1,100 kids. And so the good that we can do, the changes that we can make with 1,100 kids is so much more powerful.
For sure.
and I'm surrounded by so many more books and opportunities. And it was just a perfect transition from being a language arts teacher to a librarian. More kids, more opportunity. And this is just where I want to ride out my career.
Yeah,
I
great.
couldn't be happier in the space that I'm at.
So give us an indication as to the tech component, because I'm of the generation where I still want the book. I want the physical book, and I want to turn the pages and make notes and do all of that sort of thing. But I know there's a whole generation of kids who's doing everything online, like they have ebooks or they listen to audiobooks. Are you finding that because of the different various opportunities for reading, that it's teaching communication and tech skills at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, here we say all reading is good reading. Any
Right.
reading that you're doing, whether it's an ebook, an audiobook, the physical book, all of that is great. The communication problem that we're really working on is making sure that they're getting good sources of their media.
Right.
That's a big topic right now on what is misinformation or disinformation. That's a skill that definitely needs to be taught, and that we work on. So while access to all this different type of literature and media is wonderful in forming different opinions and perspectives and communicating and collaborating, we also have to be very careful and cautious in what information we're getting and sharing.
Sharing, yeah, for sure. So if you, as an author, I don't have any e-version books, to be quite honest. I mean, I have a PDF version that I can send to you of my book, which I guess is kind of the same. But for someone interviewing and listening audience who understands the power of reading and the opportunities for change through literacy and storytelling, would you recommend that they take a look at an audiobook, or would you recommend that they take a look at those sort of e-version books? Or would you still find that the primary resource is the physical in hand paper copy?
It's different for every reader and
Okay.
how they process the information. There's a lot of people that are multitaskers and can listen to that audiobook while folding laundry
Gardening.
or whatever it might be. For
Yeah,
me personally, if I need to like really truly absorb this information or reteach the information to somebody else, I need that hard copy in front of me, the highlighter, the pen, the annotating.
right.
That's the best way that I'm a learner. There are other people, their superpower, they just hear it and they memorize it and they have it. So it really does depend on the reader. Um, Personally, I think people should be exposed to all different sources,
Options. Yeah,
yeah, and
yeah,
options. But for me, I still like that pen and paper highlighter and
yeah,
making
me
marks
too.
in the book. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. So what's in the future for Heather? I mean, we know that you've mentioned you're going to continue your career because of the reach that you have through literacy and being in the library, which is obviously profound for the students that are moving on in their own academic career, right? But for you as an individual, for the teacher, for the marketing specialist, for the tech guide that they're using in the school, what do you think is your sort of next steps in your career development as an individual?
I'm definitely all in on Africa and helping build these libraries in
Yeah,
Zimbabwe.
yeah.
It's been over a decade that I've been traveling to Africa and
Oh,
working on clean water projects, sanitation, hygiene.
mhm,
My heart just really resonates with the people that are there. And
mhm.
now that I have the kids on board also, and other adults and communities helping me and everybody, the story is starting to come out of like the difference we can make, how wonderful
Right,
this is.
right.
So for me personally, I would like to continue staying here in the library and as the media specialist, and continue working with children and educating them, but also spreading my reach further into just the whole idea of community service,
Right.
service learning, making these small changes, big changes in the world. And then most importantly, after we get this first library in Zimbabwe at Mizuki Primary School, we'll start the next one and the next
Sure.
one.
Sure.
And
It's like the rinse and repeat, right?
we're trying. We're gotta
Yeah,
get the
yeah.
first round done, and then we'll see how that goes.
So, do you have a website that talks about the project in Africa? Because obviously, most of the folks that we interview or that share their stories on our podcast have a website or social media connections that are easily and readily available so that people from our target audience can connect. But I mean, obviously, you're in an academic environment in a middle school, in Illinois, and people can't pick up the phone and call Heather and say, "Hey, I'd like to hear more about your project." So I know that you've shared your story on our website and we've connected folks to your LinkedIn profile. But is there a website that they can go to and find out more about the project? And maybe they're interested in the philanthropic part and would like to support you in some way.
Yeah, there is. So we have two different websites going. One is through Tararai Trent, and it's linked to her tararai.org, and it's like /6K walk for literacy that I can share
Okay.
with you. So that's the student version, and that's where they're collecting their funds to help with the library. And then on the adult end, we have like a Zephy account. It's a platform in which we can collect money to use towards the fundraiser and then put towards the library. So we have two websites right now that we're using to collect funds to help with the library project.
Well, I know you're going to send those to me because I'll put them in the show notes below so that with a direct link so that people can, make a connection with you. And they can also go to your LinkedIn profile in order to, create a dialogue, perhaps an email dialogue to start with. Because I think the interesting thing about what you do, Heather, and you and I had the opportunity to meet at the London event. I think the spark that happens maybe doesn't happen immediately on impact. Sometimes we need to take a deep breath and step back and take a look at our own goals and objectives as individuals as well as business owners, and then say, okay, what are my next steps? Like, where am I going from here? What would I like to support? What would I like to do? So I think those connection points are really important, and we'll be sure to share those. But one of the things that we do in the guest blog is we share 3 words of advice. And I know it would be a wonderful way for you to wrap up your conversation or our conversation with our viewing and listening audience with your 3 words and describe why you feel that they're so important to your project. And they are: be the change.
So be the change. It's something that I believe in personally, on a professional level. It's something I share with my own children, my students, the adults that I interact with daily. And I choose those words, be the change, because the world can be a scary place, right? Everywhere we look, there just seems to be so many injustices or things that could be better. And it's easy to sit back. It's easy to say, like, what can I possibly do? Or it's easy to be overwhelmed. There's so much. How can I make a difference? And so it's difficult to be the change. But I would argue with people that, it's those very, very small steps that can have that ripple effect and make a big difference. If you're a child, maybe that small step, be the change, just be the upstander, just help someone out in need, just do that small act of kindness. If you're the adult, what's the one small thing that you can do? What's the local business that you can help out that's going to make a change? Buy the ticket to the fundraiser that's building libraries in Zimbabwe, right? Like, you can just pick one small thing to support, and then that ends up helping so many more people. That is being the change. And doing things like this, listening to others and forming those connections and those relationships, because I ultimately believe it does come back to you, right? Like, what you give
Agreed.
out is what comes back. And everywhere I've traveled, everybody says the same thing, just in a different way. It's like Ubuntu in Africa, or it's the karma, or, however the positive and negative energy. But I feel like as business owners and entrepreneurs, that, like, be the change really does come back to you. I've listened to so many of the speakers that you've had on here, the guests, and the people that really have those heart-centered projects, that are giving to others are really receiving right back into their own businesses.
So true. Yeah, that's so true.
I think just be the change and we can all make this world a little bit better.
You know what I love is that when I first started this platform, I had a quote, and my quote was, be the person who starts a ripple that creates a wave of change. And everything that you're doing, Heather, is a wonderful reminder that there is power in the individual. As humans, we can take that, what we think is a little tiny thing, may eventually create a huge movement for change. So I'd like to really thank you for being the person who opens people's eyes to the opportunities that are available and sort of step outside our comfort zone to understand that as humans, we can all make a change. We just have to make the effort.
Yeah.
Right? So thank
Yeah.
you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I really appreciate the time.
To you, our viewing and listening audience, I'd like to thank you for joining us today for this edition of Keeping It Real, introducing you to the person behind the logo. And if you'd like to connect with our guest, you're going to find all of Heather's contact information in the description portion below. I'm Trish Tonai, author, artist, and the founder and host for the series. And we invite you to share your business story. Just visit our website at shareyourstories.online and subscribe to our channel, Business Mentorship, Keeping It Real. Heather and I thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to meeting you next time when we share another great idea.